All right, and I believe we are live. And so yeah, so the title of this, first of all, we're not going to be doing any playing. This is going to be a brief kind of post commentary type of video because, as the title says, we have achieved a new PB on the Switch. Actually, new PB overall, but it just happens to be done on the Switch, and I'm very excited. We finally are making a ton of progress. I'm hoping getting into the top 20 is getting closer and closer by the day, and we're finally going to be doing a bit of a post commentary. Haven't done this in a bit of a while, but since I did this offline because I've been dealing with a bit of a cough, so first of all, apologies if I cough at various points here because I had COVID. I had COVID a few weeks ago and was dealing with COVID. Wait, oh, there's Jan. Had COVID with the in the middle of a marathon in which Pinecone, Rock and Drag, and I did a race, an online race of this game, Pokemon TCG, with all three decks. And unbelievably, I came out on top, and we won. I won. I ran the Bulbasaur deck. Rock and Drag ran Charmander, and Pinecone ran Squirtle. And so this is not the PB. This PB is not the race. I actually achieved this PB about a week and a half later. And so, without further ado, and this will also kind of serve as, if anybody wants to sort of get into this, I sort of will be explaining a little bit of the ins and outs of running this game and sort of the routing I took. And that's the great thing about this game. There's no perfect route that, routing uh, the best possible run is still a topic of discussion and constant debate amongst the speedrunning community of the Pokemon TCG. But without further ado, uh, we're gonna now hit play on this. I don't know if how the sound is looking. I tested it out and I think the sound is gonna be fine. I think the game audio and my audio is going to be, I think it's balanced enough or decently balanced. So, yeah, since the Switch version of this game finally got approved for use in runs on speedrun.com on the leaderboard, I actually don't remember if I needed to load up the save state, but I like to do it regardless. So now we're going to be starting off doing the double energy deal, because if you talk to this guy and you only have like a limited amount of energy of a low quantity of like one energy in your deck, then you get extra energy for that. And so that's going to be very useful because it's going to make the early run a little bit more consistent run. And dealing with the Switch, it's kind of a bit confusing. Not confusing, but the Pro controller is a little bit different than the controller I used before, so sometimes I may flub an input here and there. But that's while we're still dealing with this. And we're going to be talking to Mitch here, and the reason why we're talking to him right now is because we need to trigger his 3 fights that are required in order to beat him, and that's the first one, Jessica. And so now at Jessica, we're now basically going to be this run from Jessica all the way to Chris. It's just going to be exclusively from Hitmonchan. The only reason why we're doing this is because Hitmonchan basically beats everyone in that. Now, some fights may be harder. Might need to do a little bit more resetting, depending. Excuse me. Depending on what the opponent draws. Jessica is easy, but the problem with Jessica is that she has a Doduo. And if you fight a Doduo resists fighting, so it resists Hitmonchan. That's an auto reset. And you're going to be seeing a lot of this, especially in the early going, because with one Pokemon, you're going to be needing to shuffle on to actually draw it. And you have to do a bit of a reset because she drew it was a 1v3. So that was not fortuitous. There's Doduo, so we're gonna have to do a bit of a reset. Not gonna lie, this was a bit of tough start for me. From what I remember, I got this PB like I think last weekend, or no, I think I got it on Monday, Sunday or Monday, I want to say. So now there's a 1v1 and that works out well because Rattata goes down in one hit, and lucky us, there were two Rattatas. So 2-turn Jessica is totally fine with us. Lost a little bit of time there because of the resets. I'm going to go 1v3, the Doduo, but Jessica, easy so long as you don't get the Doduo. And part of the reason why we're doing the a lot of these fights in this order, at least for my round, this round is mostly similar to the one I used in a race not too long ago that I won, is that Jessica, Heather, Michael, Brandon, Nicholas, and Chris. I think Chris, I honestly can't remember at this point, but off the top of my head, but they all, after you beat them, you get 2 Coliseum packs, and Coliseum packs are the best packs you can get in this entire game, because those are the ones that have the cards that will be instrumental for the middle game and for the end game. Mainly, the Trio. The Trio is can only can only appear on Coliseum, and Coliseum basically gives you all the tools, most of the tools that you need. You know, I think Evolution and Mystery can give a couple of decent cards, but the instrumental pack is Coliseum. The Trio basically can beat the entire Elite Four after the first fight. We beat Heather. Heather is mostly easy. The only thing you need to be you need to be worried about with Heather is the fact that she can evolve her Venonat into Venomoth, and Venomoth is the same situation as Doduo, resists every fighting, so it's an auto reset. And as you saw right there, we got a Computer Search. Computer Search is a trainer card that it's arguably one of the best cards in the entire game, because basically what it does is you discard 2 cards and you can search for any card you want in your entire deck. Any card, which is just like the best possible thing you can have at almost any moment. And apologies, still dealing with the post-COVID cough. Michael is very tricky. He's very, very difficult because Michael employs a lot of high-power Pokemon like Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee, Magmar, and it's not often that you can do this fight in one go without doing any resets. Magmar, we got lucky because he did not have fire energies, but ultimately it didn't matter. Saved a little bit of time there with Michael. Normally, in the going up against a Hitmonlee, a Hitmonchan, and a Magmar with one Hitmonchan can be a little bit tough, but luckily we saved a little bit of time there. We got a Scyther there. Scyther is useful for potentially the Rock Gym, but we'll get into that later. Jennifer is one of the easiest fights in the game, provided that you don't get a Flying Pikachu, or you saw that, a 1v4. 3 Pokemon on the bench, that's like disgustingly bad. That's what we want. 1 versus 1 of... Unfortunately, we do not get the plus power, which adds 10 to our next attack, which makes things so much better. It can win us a lot of fights a lot earlier than expected, and like with Heather and her Venomoth and Jessica and her Doduo, Jennifer has a Pokemon that resists fighting, which is Flying Pikachu, which we're now encountering a couple of times. And I believe this fight ended up being really, really bad, because Jennifer got Flying Pikachu out quite a lot, and that forces us to do a lot of resets. Which is very, very odd, because Jennifer, it's rare that she gets Flying Pikachu out this many times. I don't remember this one. This is the one where we actually ended up winning? Well, you don't see a Flying Pikachu there. So for now, that seems to be good. And she missed the Pokeball training card, and there's a Flying Pikachu, of course. I think this next one, or the one after that, is the one we win. So that's also a theme of part of the early fights. There's a lot of fights, and they're easy, but they could potentially be problematic because they can bring out Pokemon that resist fighting, and at this point we're only doing fighting with the Hitmonchan because he hits hard and he has pretty decent HP. We saw right there the plus power adds that jab from 40 damage to 50, which just one shots the Surfing Pikachu, which is why plus power is so good. It's one of the best cards. I think some people would argue it's the best card in the game in this speed run. Brandon, very easy fight, provided that he does not draw a Zapdos, because, say it with me, it resists fighting. But we were fortunate enough to draw not one but 2 plus powers, which means we could win this fight in 2 turns instead of 3, which makes things so much easier, allows us to save up plenty of time. Save about 33 seconds there from the old PB. Nicholas is also very, very easy. Fortunately, he does not have a Pokemon that resists fighting, but the one problematic part is that he can have Coughing and Geodude, which is very weird for an electric type trainer. This is arguably like the worst version of a winnable fight for Nicholas. Ideally, you want to go 1 versus 1, and he has a Hitmonchan that goes down in 1 hit with a jab, or 2 Magnemite's that go down with jab is also pretty decent. But this one, not real much of an issue. Saved a little bit of time there. Now comes Isaac. Isaac, strangely enough, can be more consistent. He takes longer, but he can be more consistent than Brandon and Jennifer because he doesn't have anything that resists fighting. The only thing you would have to sort of worry about is the overabundance of Pokemon that can paralyze you, and we kind of did a reset there because it was a 3 versus 1 already, and 2 Pokemon that could potentially paralyze me, which means excuse me, which means the fight could take very long. Voltorb, very easy, goes down to 1 hit like the Magnemite I was telling you about, and he brought her another one. So this was also 1 versus 3 or 2 versus 3, or yeah, what I'm saying, it was a 1 versus 4, but 2 of them go down in 1 hit, or rather 3 of them. It was all Voltorbs except for that one Electabuzz, which is not going to be much of an issue because we have a full heal. He didn't even have an electric energy, so we won this. Saved pretty decent time. The Jennifer fight was really, really bad, but fortunately we were able to cover a lot of ground, and now we are ahead a little bit more at this point than where we were after beating Michael. So now we're going to the Rock gym to fight Chris. Chris is the second of the fighting trainers that you have to beat before you can fight Mitch, and he ends up being one of the final fights before you can get to the Elite Four, or the Pokemon Dome as it's known in this game. Chris is kind of like Michael to a lesser degree as far as bringing out Pokemon that can hit hard and bringing out a lot of them. The fortunate part is he has Pokemon like Meowth and Tauros, which just makes things which you can take down in 1 to 2 hits. Now the fortunate part here is that Hitmonlee was brought out now instead of later, which actually is fortuitous because Hitmonlee's attack deals 50 damage at 3 fighting energy. But we actually did something a little bit, we did something interesting. So the AI in most instances, when you hit them and they are within KO range, what happens is they completely abandon, that's like the vast majority of the time, they completely abandon strengthening their Pokemon who is within KO range the next turn, because, which in some ways I guess it can be a smart decision to do because now you're trying to improve your bench, but because he didn't choose to go for the high jump kick from the Hitmonlee, it makes it so that we can live whatever came out next, which was the Persian. So still lost some time. Chris is he's not a hard fight, but he's an annoying fight that can potentially lose you some time if you're not careful. Amanda is we're here at the water gym. Amanda is potentially one of the biggest run killers in this entire game because she has a weird assortment of Pokemon. Jigglypuff, Omanite, Scyther, Poliwag, and in most cases, doing this with a Hitmonchan only is very problematic because she could bring out, and I've had this instance happen to me many times. At one time, she brought out Scyther 14 times in a row across like 2 runs that ended up being dead, and it resists fighting. So the reason why we're bringing in Charmander here is because Charmander can beat Scyther in 2 turns, which makes running Amanda so much more consistent now. And we save, now we're actually ahead, we're now 30 seconds ahead. So now Scyther is here, now we're kind of going in the inverse direction, where we fought a lot of trainers who resisted fighting. Now, we are in the Rock Gym, which, for those who don't know, Rock is really considered, it's called fighting in the card game. Scyther resists fighting, which means there is not a single thing that Jean can do against us. The reason why we reset there is because Rhyhorn has the move Leer, which operates entirely different from how it is in the games. In the traditional RPG games, Leer just lowers your defense. In this one, you flip a coin, and if it lands heads, your opponent cannot attack the next turn, which is which can be very problematic for if you're trying to beat him quickly. And we have a little thing called the Leer Lock, where Rhyhorn can potentially get into a rhythm of landing heads and just preventing you from attacking for several turns in a row. That's 2. It can be quite annoying because Scyther, unless you have a plus power, you have to beat Scyther. You need 2 Leer coin flips to land tails, and we were fortunate enough that it landed tails there. Gust of Wind there was the plus power, which would have been great because plus power would have one-shotted the Rhyhorn. And Geodude, not really not a problem right there. Goes down in 1 hit. Second Geodude making great time, about 47 seconds ahead of the PB. So now at two gym medals, or badges, whatever you want to call them, we face our rival Ronald, which we always want to fight we always want to beat our rival. That's just kind of a thing in life that we just want to do. We want to prove to them we're better. Not in this way, not if you want to beat this game fast. So Ronald, his AI is incredibly weird. And so he needs a little bit of help of trying to beat it. We need to give him a bit of a push if he wants to win. And so we're going to give him the push in the form of Magnemite. Because Ronald does not know how to build a deck. He has a Lapras out here, and he spends his first 2 turns powering up other Pokemon. And so we giving him a little bit of help with Magnemite using Self-Destruct. And that's essentially the play. You use Self-Destruct to lose the fight as quickly as possible. Your progress is not lost. Your progress as far as the main story actually doesn't get impacted one way or the other if you win or lose. If you beat Ronald, you get a promotional card, which I think in this game it's like a... God, I honestly can't remember. I think it was like a special Jigglypuff, which we were never going to use. None of the cards that you would get from Ronald would actually work in a speed run at all. So now at the water gym, we have to beat all the water trainers before we can beat the water gym leader. And Electabuzz is going to be our main player. He's another Pokemon that we can get through Coliseum packs, which makes these next 4 fights a lot easier to manage. Sarah is the easiest fight in the game because you almost never have to reset her. You only need to beat 2 of her Pokemon to win max, and you can potentially win this in 1 turn. It's a little bit harder, but you can potentially win this in 1 turn if you're very, very lucky. Joshua, he is annoying, for lack of a better word, because Joshua has a Krabby. And Joshua has a Krabby that can use a move called Call for Family, which just brings out another Krabby. And then in Joshua's AI, he likes to build up his bench using Krabby. And we have been and this is not an easy Joshua fight because Lapras is tanky. But thankfully, we're able to escape out of this decently well. Actually, no. I don't remember I decided to go for the, I don't even know why I did this, to be perfectly honest, because Confusion, having to flip a coin every time you want to attack is incredibly annoying. And we got lucky there. I don't know what compelled me to actually go for the coin flip, for moving on with this fight, but that ended up being the correct choice, because we could have lost a lot more time there. You almost never want to go through fighting while confused, unless you have a full heal. This was what I did, that was not smart, but luckily we were lucky that it was fine. So now Amy has a lot of Pokemon that can be problematic. Squirtle can paralyze you. Lapras can confuse you, and she has Pokemon Breeder, which allows her to evolve her Squirtle all the way to a Blastoise, and there's a paralysis there, but luckily we have a full heal, so it doesn't matter. I mean, we get a very, very quick 3-turn Amy, which is phenomenal. It is still to this day the fastest Amy I've ever had. And a sub-minute Amy is beautiful. It's wonderful because she can be quite problematic because she can bring out a lot of Pokemon that can confuse you, paralyze you, and Electabuzz's Thunder Punch can hurt you if you hit Tails on the coin flip. So now we got Joseph. His whole spiel is flying Pokemon, which is fine because most of his flying Pokemon goes down in 1 to 2 hits. And the reason why we didn't attack here was because we didn't want to waste those couple of seconds trying to attack when Spearow wasn't really going to do anything. Spearow goes down. We have a Pidgey coming up, which is also not going to do anything. It can't even attack with 1 energy. It actually has to attack with 2 energy. So now we are 1 minute and 35 seconds ahead of pace. As you'll see, the run is going to get harder, and we're going to be a little bit in a bit of a pickle, but we will cross that bridge when we get there. Now we can challenge the fire gym, which we couldn't before. Some of the gym leaders in this game have kind of unique requirements. Murray, which is the one we're going to get to next, his requirement you need to have 4 badges. Amy, you need to beat all of her gym trainers. Isaac, same deal. Ken, you need to have 300 cards. Not unique cards, repeats count, but you need to have 300 total cards collected, which you'll easily surpass that amount by this point in the run, so it's not an issue. And it works out decently well because Ken and Murray together, they have an almost identical deck. They employ a lot of high HP normal type Pokemon with a splash of whatever their element, their type is. Ken is fire, so he'll bring out a Magmar and a Growlithe. Murray psychic, so he's got Mr. Mime and Abras. But you'll see a lot of repeats as far as, for example, getting a Tauros and Chanseys and Kangaskhan, Snorlax in the case of Murray. Like a lot of damage sponges that really don't do anything other than sorry about that. Other than basically waste your time. And those are kind of like the type of fights that doesn't kill your run, but really wastes a lot of time. And the problem is like they're common. They're not like cards that like or have a low chance of appearing. There's a really strong chance that you're doing these fights and we're gonna see a couple of high HP colorless types, which is what normal type is in this game. Like 222 on Murray. It's not great, but it's also not bad. It's not bad, especially when we have to do a deck edit. Which, you know, editing your deck takes about, depending on what you want to do, it takes anywhere from like 10 to 30 seconds. So you subtract all of that. This was like a 90-second Ken, which is not awful. Murray is very annoying. Most of the time, just playing it with just Digletts is fine. Because Diglett can two-shot everything, except for one Pokemon. Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime has a Pokemon power, or a special ability, that essentially prevents all damage that does more than 20 HP. Diglett's strongest attack does 30, and his weakest does 10. But Hitmonchan, his strongest attack does 20, which is perfect, and all we need from this point onwards to essentially take care of Murray. Because from this, now he brought out the Kadabra, which is fine, because we have 2 Hitmonchans that can one-shot, that can two-shot the the Kadabra. But just as I mentioned earlier, much earlier in the run, if the opponent's Pokemon gets hit and they are about to get knocked out in the next turn, no matter what, then they will abandon the Pokemon that's about to get KO and just start focusing on the Pokemon they have on the bench. This was a prime example. Murray could have knocked out my Hitmonchan. Ultimately, it wouldn't have mattered because we have another Hitmonchan on the bench that would have taken care of it immediately, but that kind of goes to show why having a Hitmonchan is so vital to this run. So now we're going to be facing Ronald again. And Ronald, same situation as last time. We want to lose as fast as possible, but there's a bit of a twist in this one. We want to have some non-lightning energy, because the way Ronald's AI can operate sometimes is that he's the following. You need 2 turns, you need a lightning and any energy to be able to activate self-destruct. But the problem is, if you equip a lightning energy, then they will use an energy removal to, more often than not, use an energy removal to take out the lightning energy, but not if you equip it with a non-lightning energy, which is very weird. And so we kind of just skip that whole fight, but essentially, we have a Mysterious Fossil. A Mysterious Fossil works wonders in this fight, in the Ronald fights, because you can essentially lose in 1 turn if you're lucky and not have to go through the self-destruct. We beat Murray and we talked to the old man that gave us a Mewtwo. Mewtwo is important because Mewtwo is well, you're going to see right then and there that it's going to end up not being consistent, but the intended plan is that Mewtwo one-shots all of Mitch's Pokemon. The caveat, the tricky part is that you essentially need to go first because Mewtwo needs 3 turns, 3 energy to be able to attack, and Mitch's Pokemon does a lot of damage, and ideally you want to try to just find something to retreat because he has a move that at 1 energy basically recovers 2 energy from your discard pile and it automatically attaches it, meaning Mewtwo can attack in 2 turns instead of 3. We're going through so much deck shuffling because we only have the 1 Pokemon, and problem is you want to go first. If you don't go first, then you're most likely going to lose the fight because Hitmonchan right now, that 1v1, Hitmonchan wins because in 3 turns he can do 80 damage before we can even attack. By this point, I'm like mentally screaming because like we're already doing so well and we're not starting these fights and it's becoming such an issue, and we're hoping that we can draw something. And I believe this is what ended up being the actual fight. But boy, oh boy, this was an absolute mess. We take her the Hitmonlee, and you know, unlike in the actual RPGs, Mewtwo does not have any resistances, so in the actual games, Mewtwo would resist fighting. Not so much in this game. I'm taking care of the matchup. I'm still sweating bullets, and I'm like thanking Arceus that he didn't bring out like a Machop on the bench or something, because we would have lost. And we would have lost so much more time. Thankfully, we lost a minute and 3 seconds, which is not good, but we were able to still be ahead of the pace. There's 2. So I actually run this game, the Bulbasaur and Friends run, the Bulbasaur deck, and there's 2 routes I take, and the routes are dependent squarely on if I get an Articuno, which changes the stretch of 5 fights after the second Rana fight. We didn't get an Articuno, so now we're going with the Mewtwo / Abra and Kadabra deck. Rick has a lot of Psychic, a lot of Grass that are weak to Poison, and Porygons. Now, the reason why we didn't keep Mewtwo on here was because the Porygon that he has resists Psychic, and it would take us a total of 3 turns if we don't have a plus power to take out the Porygon, which is a lot. However, if we Kadabra beats it in 2 turns, 1 turn if we have a plus power. And there we see the magic of computer search, because we were able to get the Kadabra out there when it would have been impossible. And now you're going to see why having Kadabra is much better than having Mewtwo, because, well, actually you're going to see later on, but we have a plus power. There's a Porygon. Now we can beat it in 1 turn instead of 2 turns, or in the case of, like, if we were to go up against a, if we were to have a Mewtwo running the show, it would take us 3 turns to have to beat Porygon without a plus power. And the unfortunate part with Rick is that Rick overextends a lot. Like, he just likes doing moves that will do absolutely nothing but stall time. Like, he doesn't need 4 Pokemon. Like, he keeps adding on to his bench, which will do, like, absolutely nothing, because all we need is 2 more KOs and we win. Which, it's kind of the frustrating part of this game, but to one of those things that we also just absolutely love, to be perfectly honest. We have a build there, which gives a switch, which is fortuitous because we were able to switch out our Kadabra. Switching out heals status effects. Oddly enough, if you're coming into this game like you're approaching traditional Pokemon games, it's so wildly different. You're not gonna be able to pull off some of the things that you would be able to pull off in the game, and vice versa. Now we're gonna keep it with the Aberrant Kadabra, and we have 3 more fights. Our final gym leader is going to be Nikki. Nikki is the grass type gym leader, and much like in the case of Amy and Isaac and Mitch, you have to beat all of her gym trainers before you can even challenge Nikki. Now, the extra challenge in this is that you not only have to beat all 3 of her gym trainers, you have to actually find Nikki, and she's in a house on the northwestmost part of the map. But it's not exactly fun to have to go through, because it involves leaving the grass club, going into the house where Nikki is at, and then coming back. Brittany is very annoying, in the sense that she has the most Pokemon in any fight in the entire run, and she has such a huge variety: grass, fighting, fire, psychic. First of all, she's a grass type gym leader, and so we need to be Aberrant Kadabra is arguably the best deck to go through, because you're gonna have to go through, because it deals a lot of damage, and Kadabra one-shots everything that Brittany has. But the trick is, if you don't draw a Kadabra on your opening hand, you might as well just restart, because you're more than likely going to lose that fight. She has so many Pokemon, and she's going to fill her bench so much that it's just going to make things so much worse if you don't have a Kadabra on your hand. So now, Kristen, we have a Ponyta, and we're basically running the Ponyta strat because we have a double colorless energy, which can potentially one-shot her team, or 50 HP Pokemon you have a plus power. Kristen is almost entirely grass, which is weak to fire, but she does have a Licky Tongue, which can be pretty problematic. But thankfully, she did not bring it out. 3 Tangelas and a Bulbasaur, which is, to Ponyta, it's Child's Play at this point. And with that, we are back in the lead. Not in the lead, but we are in the driver's seat ahead of PB Pace. And for those of you who are watching and actually have not seen what I actually ended up doing on this run, I wonder what you guys are gonna would think the final time is going to be. Obviously, it's going to be faster than hour 35, but curious to see what you guys have. What you guys think the final number is going to be. And of course, I'm going to be posting the VOD of this, and that's going to contain the final time. So, if you're already seeing the VOD of this, you already know what the time is, what the final time is. Let's see. Nikki can be. She's typically not hard. She's typically not a difficult fight, but she can be problematic because her Oddishes can paralyze. Her Executes can inflict hypnosis. And like with Amy using Pokemon Breeder, Nikki has Pokemon Breeder, which allows her to evolve her Oddish all the way to Vileplume immediately, or her Bulbasaur into a Venusaur. And that's kind of the annoying part in all this with the Execute in the sleep. I don't even know what I'm doing. I think what I'm just trying to waste as much energy as possible to kind of avoid having to deal with the mess that is Nikki. And unfortunately, there's the Professor Oak and the Bill, which means we're gonna have to win the old COVID cop is really annoying, isn't it? Having to deal with Nikki. We have to beat her the old-fashioned way, which is knocking out 6 of her Pokemon. Bulbasaurs are not really a bother because it just constantly... It needs 2 energy to fight. And there you have it. Not gonna lie, at this point, I've gotten to this point so much. Like, my goal... I've set benchmarks for myself. And we're ahead of pace, ahead of the sub-hour. We're on sub-hour pace. That is one of my goals doing this, and having gone through this route so many times, having been to this point where I'm ahead of pace, it can be very nerve-wracking because the next 5 fights are unbelievably difficult. They can, like, any one of these fights can, well, the exception of one, but that's like extremely long. Like, any one of these fights can last you several minutes. But if you are experienced enough and you know what to look for, you can potentially you can still do this in good time. So now we're going up against Courtney. She is the first of the Elite Four, or the Grandmaster, if you want to say. Courtney. So the gimmick of the Grandmasters, Courtney, Steve, Jack, and Rod, they each have the legendary cards, which is our main goal, is obtaining the legendary cards. We have to beat, it's like traditional Elite Four, win all of them in a row, or else you have to start all over again. She has Moltres. Her legendary Moltres, basically, once it's placed on the field, Courtney is able to add 1 to 4 Pokemon, Fire Energy at will. Now, the good news in all this is that this is arguably the most consistently good fight, because there are 3 ways you can play this. Dugong, Gyarados, and Articuno, all of them within 3 to 4 energy can inflict 50 damage, which will 2-shot all every Moltres that Courtney has, and 1-shots every other fire energy that she has. The problem is, she likes to be a little bit too trigger happy with the Moltreses and all the fire energy, and she has this Magmar. This Magmar that she just took out is honestly the bane of a lot of Runda's existence. She has that Magmar knows the move Smokescreen, which does 10 damage, which is fine, whatever. However, every time it hits, we have to flip a coin enabled before we can attack. If it lands heads, the attack goes through. If it lands tails, the attack fails and the turn is over. Luckily, we were able to get that done and still finish ahead of the pace. However, that took a little bit longer than I would have wanted, because now we're back at over an hour at the current pace. However, here comes I'm smiling because this is amazing. So now we basically go with the Diglett and Dugtrio. One Dugtrio is really bad. We didn't get any Dugtrios throughout this run, but having one Dugtrio is really bad for the next 4 fights, but ideally you want to get 2, 3, or 4, but 1 is still winnable. This is going to be amazing. So I'm going to let this play out first, and then I'm going to explain it. What just happened. Well, I also get some water. So what just happened is the incredible one-turn Steve. So, to kind of give a bit of behind-the-scenes AI background, the AI cheats in the Pokemon Dome. The AI will always have at least 2 basic Pokemon to put onto their field. However, they will have one, if one of those 2 is the legendary bird Pokemon that they have, then they will not put it onto their field to start. And then you would start out with a 1v1. If you land heads, and you happen to have the fortuitous matchup, like Diglett versus Voltorb, and you're able to gamble your way into getting 2+ powers in that first turn, you can win on the very first turn, which is fantastic because Steve is in his Zapdos, his legendary Zapdos that he has in his hand, but chose not to do it because he wanted to use his ability, which is once it's placed onto the bench, it will inflict 30. Zapdos will inflict 30 damage on any random Pokemon out on the field. And guess who has 30 HP? Diglett. Which also, by the way, it resists all weakness and resistance numbers, so it does a hard 30 damage. So we were more than lucky to avoid having to deal with that potential nightmare. And Jack is the other nightmare that we have to deal with. Jack is, in my opinion, the hardest fight in the entire game, or at least of the Elite Four, because he's got 3 different versions of Articuno. I think it's 3. Or rather, he has multiple versions of Articuno. And he has Lapras. This Articuno can inflict 50 damage in 4 energy, and can inflict 30 in 3 energy. And that's not good. That's not good for us. Thankfully, we were able to take it out before it becomes a problem, but it also has Lapras, which is also a problem. And the legendary Articuno that you saw a moment ago that not the one that we just took out, but the other one. His Pokemon power is that once it's placed on the bench, you flip a coin. If it lands head, your opponent's Pokemon is paralyzed until the end of their next turn. Which is not fun. It's not fun at all. It has 100 HP, meaning if we don't have 2+ powers, we don't take it out in 1 turn. We take it out in 3 turns if we don't have 2+ powers. And Jack is the worst defender of the trainer card Scoop Up that you just saw a second ago. Scoop Up basically returns a Pokemon that you have and adds it to your hand, and you just bring it back onto your field. And he likes to do that a lot. Now, thankfully, we avoided having to waste 3 turns taking out the Articuno because we got the Gust of Wind. That was a 3-minute and 45-second Jack. That was still not good, but our last PB was that Jack run was so bad that we saved a ton of time. Rod is arguably the easiest of the Elite Four because his whole spiel is kind of like Lance in the original Red and Blue, and where it's like, oh, like dragon Pokemon, that aren't really dragons. Gyarados, Dragonairs. His legendary card is Dragonite, which you will almost never ever see because his deck building is bad. Now, Gyarados can beat us in 2 turns. However, we got so lucky. Excuse me. We got so lucky that he was not able to set up the Gyarados, and so we have been more than lucky to be able to take it out, because Gyarados versus fighting, and so it's, you know, a 1v1, all of our 1v1, Dartrio loses most of those fights, but we were fortunate enough to be able to get this done in 96 seconds. That's an okay rod. 1 minute 36 seconds is an okay rod. Now comes the final fight. Final Ronald, which he has the his deck building is the worst for a champion could possibly have, because he has all four legendary Pokemon: Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, and Dragonite. And he will liberally use Articuno, Moltres, and Zapdos. Liberally. And the problem is that you're going to need quite a bit of help, because dealing with all those Pokemon powers at the same time is in one fight is really, really difficult to manage. Now, the good news at the very least is that with Ronald, there are two things that you need to remember. Ronald does not have a single plus power trainer card, which means you can feel safe if you feel like you're within like KO range if one were to have a plus power. It doesn't have one, so that's fine. And that's the unfortunate part. Zapdos takes out the Diglett. The second thing to be wary about Ronald is that Ronald only has fire energy. He doesn't have electric, lightning, he doesn't have water, meaning his Articuno and his Zapdos cannot actually use their attack. And by this point, the nerves are just taking over, and I'm just like, I wasted so much time right then and there. I think I lost. That's like a, yeah, that the nerves are kind of getting to me right there, but we were able to persevere. I think eventually this was the I think this is the Ronald fight that actually ends up being the one that wins. Or not, actually, no. Wasted time for nothing. And so yeah, the thing about this Ronald fight is that you gotta be. It's very tricky to have to, because he will just make your life miserable, because he just does so many weird strategies, and like same with Rick, the Science Club leader. He likes to overextend a lot, and but yeah, it's a very, but it can be very, very tough. And God, I was hoping that he just wouldn't be able to pull out that that extra Pokemon, but that's how it be. No idea how you haven't corrected them. Thanks, Welsh. Yeah, honestly, that's the new goal. Like that's the new goal. Like that's the new hard goal, reaching the top 10. And for those of you watching, go check out Welsh. He's the incredible runner. He does fantastic, a fantastic job running this game. And also in other categories like the 80% hard mode, which is incredible. Incredible to watch. I don't think I could ever pull it off, or at least anywhere near as good as he is. But yeah, that is the run. After you beat Ronald, you have to get yourself a. You have to add yourself like what 38 seconds after you beat Ronald to be able to go for this cutscene, which unfortunately it's still a part of the speed run, even though you're not actually running. But that'll be time in 3, 2, 1, and that's it. Yeah, 59:57 on the Switch again. So might have to do some retime right then and there. But yeah, that is the run. And I gotta say, I was very happy. Well, I was frustrated that it wasn't better, but I was happy that like I knew I could actually, do a lot better, and we were able to do it. And it was just unfortunate that we were actually having such a fantastic duck run at the dome for one duck trio, only for Ronald to expose that at the end. If he didn't, this would have been. I'm not sure. Would this be the greatest? I don't know if this would be the best Ronald ever. Um, but it would be or rather the best Pokemon Dome ever. But it would be good. It would be pretty darn good. It would be up there. But that's the run, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will have the VOD of this on the YouTube channel. Trust me, I can speak words. I can speak words on the YouTube channel, Tornite as well. I'm gonna have a commentary and a non-commentary version of this, and for those of you who just want to be able to watch it without commentary. But either way, hope you enjoyed it. I hope to be running maybe later next week, and we'll see. I'm actually going to be away from home for a few days because for work related purposes on a business trip. But after I'm back, hopefully the cough will be good enough or manageable enough to the point where I can stream comfortably without having to deal with this cough. Anyways, have a good night, everyone, and hope you enjoyed the run. And we'll be back for more Pokemon trading card games. Have a good night, everyone, and stay beautiful.